Hey, welcome back to another episode of Cinema History. That's what we're here for. I have a somewhat shorter story for you guys today, I think. Fun, slightly shorter story about Valeska Suratt. I'm just going to assume that I am saying that correctly. Valeska was born on June 28, 1882, in Owensville, Indiana, to parents Ralph and Anna Suratt. She had an older stepsister, Myrtle Strickland, an older brother, Austin, and her paternal grandparents were French immigrants, and her maternal grandparents were English immigrants. Her parents had another daughter after her, not too terribly long, I'm not sure the age gap. They named her Leah. And then when Valeska was 6 years old, her family moved to, I forgot, I think it's Terre Haute, Indiana. I was born in Indiana, but not there, so I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that. And, just don't get mad at me, okay? I'm going to go with Terre Haute. And then 3 years after that, when she was 9, her brother Richard Judge was born. I don't know if Judge was his middle name, but he went by Judge for some reason. Not really important to the story. In 1899, when she was 16 or 17 years old, Valeska dropped out of high school and worked at the Albert Leclerc photograph studio. That was to save up enough money to move to Indianapolis. And then in Indianapolis, she worked as an assistant in the millinery hat-making section of the William H. Black department store, and she made $5 a week, which I feel like is pretty good money for 1899, 1900, somewhere in there. According to Valeska's sister Leah, she always wanted a career on the stage. That's all she talked about. She would wish on the stars at night that she could have a career acting, performing on the stage. So she's in Indianapolis and she's working at this department store, but she's wanting to pursue her dream of performing on the stage, and she knows that she needs to improve her singing and dancing skills. So she saves up enough money to move to Chicago pretty shortly after she had moved to Indianapolis. She's working toward her dream of being on the stage. And she goes to this party at the Wellington Hotel in August of 1902. And she meets the Grand Duke, Boris Vladimirovich of Russia. So, if that's not the most Russian name, Boris Vladimirovich, I'll put a picture of him up. Not a bad looking guy, actually. But anyway, she meets him and he invites her out to lunch. At some point in their time together, he asked her if there was anything in life that she really wanted, and she replied, "Yes, I want to go on the stage." In an interview years later with Photoplay magazine, Valeska claimed that the Grand Duke Boris wrote her a check with no strings attached for $10,000. And this is 1902. That's a lot of money. I did not look up how much that is in today's money. Maybe I should do that. In the meantime, I will look that up in just a second. Valeska's sister Leah contradicts this claim about, I gotta go back. I gotta go back. Okay. So he supposedly writes her this check for $10,000, and Valeska said in this interview that she had sent most of that money to her family in Indiana and used the rest of it to relocate to New York. But Leah claimed that she, Leah, had won $1,000 in a Hungarian lottery, and Valeska had borrowed that to move to New York. Okay, so how much? Come on, Google. Come here. Come to me, Google. 10,000. that would be approximately $323,447.62 today. But I don't know. I don't know if she was telling the truth about that, or if Leah was telling the truth about her using her money. I wasn't there. So, she used that some money, somehow, to relocate to New York, but not yet. So, while she's in Chicago, you know, she's trying to start her stage career, and she does, and she is paired up with a vaudeville comedian named Billy Gould, Gould. His real name was William J. Flannery. The duo perfected conversational song and dance routines. They had a version of Salome's Dance of the Seven Veils, and also an exotic Apache dance that was performed by Valeska. Yeah, we'll just leave that. Okay. They got married, Billy and Valeska, in 1904, and supposedly they went to tour in South Africa and then England before returning to the United States and moving to New York. I'm not exactly sure when they moved to New York. The timeline's a little fuzzy. In 1906, they are still in England because Edward Edelston, sorry, this scarf is bugging me. A Broadway producer sees Valeska on the staircase of London's Hotel Savoy in a black velvet backless dress and concludes just from this sighting of her that she must be in his new play, The Belle of Mayfair. He asked composer Leslie Stuart, who was known for his work in the production Florodora, to incorporate more songs and dances for her. Leslie Stuart, the composer, does indeed write some more songs, and he writes a song specifically for her called Why Do They Call Me a Gibson Girl? Now, if you're not familiar with Gibson girls, they were pictures drawn by Charles Dana Gibson. You've most definitely seen the images. The big bouffant hairstyles and hourglass figures and all of that, you know, these drawings. Apparently, Valeska looked like a Gibson girl, so they wrote this song for her. And castmate Edna May, who was an American singer and actress, was jealous of her success, supposedly, and almost quit the play, which was, she was a London favorite, this Edna May. And so this was a little bit of a scandal, and the New York Times wrote of this situation. As a matter of fact, Why Do They Call Me a Gibson Girl is the sort of song to make any actress jealous of another's opportunity to sing it. And with its novel specialty of living Gibson pictures, meaning Valeska, it created another sensation at Daly's last night. Hey, good for you, Valeska. Good for you. In 1907, with the success of this play and such, New York millinery shops were advertising Valeska Suratt hats. And the actress appeared in another play. Hip hip hooray! I'm not cheering, that's the name of the play. Valeska signs a vaudeville contract the same year with Oscar Hammerstein I, not Oscar Hammerstein II, who's, you know, famous for Sound of Music and Oklahoma and yada yada with Richard Rodgers, but his grandfather, who was a businessman and also a composer. This contract that she signed was for $2,500 a week. That's a lot of money. And that quickly was raised to $3,000 a week. Now, in 1908, the year after that, Suratt and Gould went their separate ways, and Valeska started doing a solo act, and because of her massive success, she started billing herself as vaudeville's greatest star, and I don't know that you can really argue against that, honestly. She also was billed as the biggest drawing card in New York. She returned to legitimate theater, i.e. like Broadway versus vaudeville, in 1909 with The Belle of Boulevards. The Belle of Boulevards enjoyed moderate success. And then in 1910, this is fun. This is a fun story, okay? In 1910, she appeared in The Girl with the Whooping Cough, which sounds like a really, I mean, that's a hilarious title to me. But that's literally it. She was a girl with whooping cough. Well, a woman, you know, a woman with whooping cough. And the plot is she would pass whooping cough to unsuspecting men when she kissed them, and her escapades land her in divorce court. Apparently her character was married and she's making out with other men. So this was slightly scandalous. Now the play debuted in Trenton, New Jersey earlier in the year, and then was supposed to be moved to New York Theater on April 25th, 1910. Now the Trenton police, had deemed the play fit for performance with a few minor censorship things going on, you know, just you know, take this out, take that out, whatever, or, you know, modify it a little bit so it's not salacious. But the New York mayor, William J. Gaynor, was not convinced that this play was really all that terribly appropriate. So he requested and received a script to review, and he didn't find anything objectionable. He's like, okay. So he let them go on, but he didn't actually go to the performances. So he started receiving complaints about how wildly inappropriate this play was. So in response, he sent 2 stenographers to go to the performance and take notes. So these stenographers come back with a report, and he is scandalized. And he's so upset by the reports that it's inappropriate. We can't have this in New York City, and what are we doing? This woman is dancing exotic dances in the courtroom, you know, divorce court, and making out with men, and she's married. What is happening here? So he requests suppression of the play by New York Police Commissioner William F. Baker. A lot of Williams. Her husband was a William, and then we've got William Gaynor, the mayor, and William Baker, the police commissioner. Must have been a real popular name in the late 1800s when all these people were being born. I'm sorry. That's a stupid thing to note, but here I am anyway, noting it. Here I am. I'm noting it. There's a lot of Williams. Okay. The police commissioner Baker goes and threatens the theater's management company that they would not renew their operating license at the end of the month when it was up. Very conveniently, it was up at the end of April. So the management company is like, okay, we're good. Don't do that to us. Don't. But the producer of the play, Al Woods, is like, I'm not shutting down. No. He refuses to shut down. He actually goes to the New York Supreme Court to fight it, and the judge granted him an injunction that would prevent the police from shutting down the play, like, physically. But it had zero effect on whether or not the operating license would not be renewed. So it wasn't. They didn't renew the license. It got shut down for that. And then Al Woods, the producer, was like, fine, I'll take my show to another town. But Gaynor, the New York mayor, was so dead set against this play that he threatened to call up mayors in any other town that he went to and warn them about how salacious the play was. So Al Woods just gave up. The girl with the whooping cough was no more. Now, a side note about New York Mayor Gaynor. In 1910, the same year that he shut the play down, there was a disgruntled former city employee who's like a dock watchman in New York. His name was James J. Gallagher. Tried to assassinate Gaynor and actually managed to shoot him in the throat. I don't I don't know. He survived. He survived it. Apparently, like, maybe grazed it or something. I'll put a picture up of him, like, he's just walking. He got shot in the throat and he's like, ah! Pretty wild. Anyway, so he did not die from that. He died of a heart attack 3 years later, September 10th, 1913, on the RMS Baltic on a deck chair on this boat. He just had a heart attack. And the doctors concluded that, if anything, the neck injury was a minor contributing factor. You know, he died of a heart attack. Had nothing to do with getting shot in the neck. Crazy. Back to Valeska. After the fiasco of the girl with the whooping cough, Suratt teamed up with Fletcher Norton, another actor, in December of 1910, so just later that year, in a playlet called Boof Variety, B-O-U-F-F-E, I don't know, Boof, Buffet. She was lauded by critics, audiences, somebody lauded her for her range in both comedy and drama due to this. And her high fashion costumes gained notoriety as well, including an $11,000 Cinderella cloak. I mean, this woman was making money hand over fist. She was very successful. She was called the Empress of Fashions, and Vogue magazine called her one of the best dressed women on the stage, and would often publish detailed descriptions of her costumes. That's nice. I don't know. That's nice. I don't know why I'm talking like that. I'm sorry. Now, in 1911, Valeska officially divorced Billy Gold and married Fletcher Norton, you know, her new stage partner. But Fletcher filed for divorce only 8 weeks later and was granted the divorce on July 11th of 1911. I don't know the reasons for his asking for a divorce. Sometime around this time, Valeska purchased a 4-bedroom home for her mother at 1634 North 9th Street in Terre Haute, Indiana. And she also stored trunks of her gowns there, her many gowns. Her mother passed away in the home on May 3rd, 1914. Also, during World War I, Valeska would quietly donate $500 a week to the American Red Cross. Now, in 1915, Valeska signs a contract with Fox Film Corporation, which would later in 1935 join up with 20th Century or whatever to become 20th Century Fox. But anyway, so Fox Film Corporation, she signs a contract and is marketed as a vamp or a femme fatale. And she made her film debut in The Soul of Broadway, a silent crime drama. According to Fox Film Corporation, 1915 to 1935, A History in Filmography, a book, published in 2011, she wore over 150 gowns in the film, each costing over, or valued over, $25,000 a piece. Now, this seems to, because she was the Empress of Fashion, she's famous for being fashionable, this seems to have been most likely an exaggeration, a wild exaggeration for the sake of the papers and publicity for the film. But there is no way to verify how many gowns she wore in the film, and we'll get into that in a little bit as to why. Valeska didn't really seem to care for Hollywood very much at all, and after only 11 films, she left in 1917 and went back to stage performance in New York between 1917 and 1929, and at some point in this, I'm assuming closer to 1917, but maybe not. I should look this up. Maybe we'll talk about him in another film, but Al Jolson, she smashed a record of his, a crowd record, how many people attended a show at the Winter Garden. I don't know how famous he was on stage prior to making The Jazz Singer, So sometime after she left Hollywood as far as acting in films, she did become a screenwriter and a biblical scholar. She was a member of the Baha'i faith, which teaches that there is a single foundation for all religion, and also focuses on the abolition of the extremes of wealth and poverty. So that was her belief system. And in 1928, with a fellow Baha'i member, and he was a Persian author and scholar, and supposedly descended straight from Muhammad, Mirza Ahmad Sohrab, they sued together, the two of them, Cecil B. DeMille. Yes, that DeMille. For stealing a scenario, a scene, something, for his famed film, The King of Kings, from their screenplay, Mary Magdalene. The suit went to trial in February of 1930, but it was settled out of court very quietly, and the outcome is unknown as far as I could tell. I'm trying to go for the vamp look. That's the point today. So after this lawsuit, she was apparently blacklisted. Like, she wasn't acting anymore anyway, but I think it also affected her ability to sell her screenplays. She disappeared into relative obscurity for a while. She was discovered living at some point in a cheap New York City motel, completely broke. And the novelist Fannie Hurst, famous for writing The Imitation of Life, which was adapted to film, Fannie Hurst learned of her situation and organized a benefit for her. Very nice of her. The benefit that Fannie Hurst organized raised $2,000 for Valeska, but she quickly gambled it away. She tried to revive her career again and sell her story to a newspaper, her life story, William Randolph Hearst newspaper, but one of the reporters who read her manuscript said that Valeska wrote that she was the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. So her manuscript was rejected. Valeska's stage credits include The Belle of Mayfair and Hip Hip Hooray, The Girl with Whooping Cough, The Red Rose, and Spice of 1922. Her films were The Soul of Broadway and The Immigrant in 1915, The Straight Way, Jealousy, and The Victim in 1916, The New York Peacock, She, The Slave, The Siren, Wife Number 2, and A Rich Man's Plaything of 1917. Her films are all lost due to the 1937 Fox Vault Fire, which occurred at the 20th Century Fox Film Storage Facility in Little Ferry, New Jersey. It is believed that the fire was caused by the spontaneous combustion of gases released from decaying nitrate film in the poorly ventilated buildings, building, I think it was just one main building, during a heat wave. So it got very hot, these gases ignited, there it went. The fire spread rapidly and violently as contents of the vaults exploded. A 13-year-old boy, Charles Greaves, was fleeing the scene with his mother, Anna, and brother, James, and they were all three severely burned, but Charles died from his injuries later. Now, they weren't hanging around in the vault. This storage facility was kind of in the middle of a neighborhood, and the contents were exploding, these canisters of film and everything. So 5 homes were damaged in the neighborhood surrounding the facility, and then also 2 cars or vehicles were destroyed. The Greaves family were the only injuries and fatalities. The rest of the damage includes the majority of films that were produced by Fox before the year 1932. Many films from other studios that were stored there as well, and negatives from Educational Pictures and Belarus Film. Other vault fires include the 1956 fire at the MGM storage facility. Supposedly there was another fire at Fox in 1952. There was a 1914 fire at a storage facility called the Lubin Company, and I don't know what all studios stored their films there. There was a 1978 fire at the National Archives, so a lot of that was negatives of newsreels, so like historical things gone. There was also a fire at the Universal Backlot in 2008, so quite recently. It is estimated that up to 500,000 song titles were lost because there's a lot of music recordings there. If you have stuck around this long, you're going to get to hear me do what is apparently the only recording now of the song from Belle of Mayfair, Why Do They Call Me a Gibson Girl? I found sheet music for it, could not find a single recording of it anywhere, so it was kind of hard to actually learn it. I worked really hard on it. It's not perfect. I've been dealing with some sinus issues and allergy junk, so don't be mean, okay? Don't be mean. But it'll give you a decent idea of how it would have sounded. I tried to stay as faithful as possible to the arrangement that I found, which is the only one. There's no other arrangement of this song. And this is the song that caused the slight media uproar about Edna May possibly, threatening to quit the cast of Belle of Mayfair. So I hope you enjoy that. Stick around. It'll be educational, if nothing else. And that is the story of Valeska Suratt, why her films no longer exist today, and therefore why she's kind of forgotten. She was a contemporary, worked at the exact same time and for the same studio as Theda Bara, but some of Theda Bara's work, quite a bit of her work is lost too because of fires and things that destroyed films that had never been transferred to any other type of media. But some of her work survives, and so she's kind of the premier vamp that everybody thinks of generally, but she wasn't the only one. There was also Virginia Pearson. She was another vamp that worked at the same time as the two of them that did not seem to get quite as much notoriety. In the 20s or so, Valeska just she left Hollywood anyway, but the vamp image was kind of losing popularity, and so, not that was the only thing that she did. I mean, the Gibson Girl image is not vamp. They're very different. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the song. I hope you enjoyed the story. Leave a like, drop a comment, all those things. Cool, awesome. See you later. Bye. Well, not bye. No, not bye. You gotta listen to the song, okay?
I walked one day along Broadway when I was in New York. A friend of mine said, "My, you're fine. You have got the Gibson walk. You have the pose and Gibson nose and quite the Gibson leer. You've surely heard of the man called Gibson. He meant the fellow called Dana Gibson. What he meant was not quite clear until I landed over here. But why do they call me a Gibson girl? Gibson girl, Gibson girl. pass by with dreamy eye, or a bored and languid smile. They look as if they'd had a tiff with Hicks or Beerbohm Tree. They do their best, for they've seen the pictures. That's the point of the day, now pictures. They're intended, don't you see, for all a perfect type to be. But why do they call me a Gibson girl? Gibson girl, Gibson girl. What is the matter with Mr. Ibsen? Mr. Ibsen, why Dana Gibson? Wear a blank expression and a monumental curl, and walk with a bend in your back, then they call you a Gibson girl. But why do they call me a Gibson girl? Gibson girl, Gibson girl. What is the matter with Mr. Ibsen? Mr. Ibsen, why Dana Gibson? Wear a blank expression and a monumental curl, and walk with a bend in your back, then they call you a Gibson girl.
Alright, obviously I recorded that earlier and trying to lip sync, and I didn't do a perfect job, but I've been up here for like 2.5 hours and I'm done. I'm done recording. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Feel free to subscribe. And I'll see you next time. I mean, I won't see you. You'll see me next time. Alright. Bye. And in any... I can't talk. I'm gonna be done with my story before I'm done with my makeup. Can't have that. That would be terrible. You know, he's on like a boat. He's on a boat. Do you get it now? It's a boat. It's a boat. Screenplay, Mary Magdalene. I don't know why I said it like that. Mary. Due to the 1937 Vox